Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my girlfriend when her kid called me names and she didn't tell him to knock it off? My ex-girlfriend Heather and I are both teachers. I'm 48, she's 34. We got together when I was 44 and she was 30. I've known her son since he was 11, and I have no biological children, just getting the facts out of the way. I've had a polite relationship with her son for the 4 years I've known him. He's a good kid, and I think he'll be a good man. His biological father, Dan, is a waste of skin. He is 35. He was also a student of mine when he was in middle school. This is important. Dan met Heather when they were away at college, in a different city from where I've spent my entire career. Dan Jr. wasn't really a problem for most of our relationship. His dad was and is a jerk, but not more than most. Then Heather and I started talking about getting married. All of a sudden, Dan Jr. started mouthing off and misbehaving, saying things like I couldn't replace his dad. He became confrontational. I'm a teacher. I've seen many of my students go through this. I talked to Heather about getting him some therapy and also suggested family therapy. She has seen this in her students too, so she should know what he needs. Just after Christmas break, he started calling me a PDF file. That's the kind of thing that could end my career. I talked to Heather about it, but she said he was just working through his emotions. I said I understood that he was angry and confused, but that some words could lead to severe consequences. She refused to see my position. I brought it up in counseling, and she still defended Dan Jr. He said it again in therapy. He said I could have been her teacher when she was in elementary school. While that is technically true, I never met her until she was 30. She was a whole adult with a child. I can't take any chances with my job, so I broke up with her and moved out. She thinks I'm overreacting. Her parents think we just need to slow down and give her kid a chance to catch up. I miss her, but like I said, I can't have that word associated with me, and she couldn't control her kid. Am I being an a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Emotions aside, both Junior and his mom need to understand the severity and seriousness of that accusation. You're protecting yourself and the career you've built. I wouldn't expect a kid to instinctively understand that words can have severe consequences, but his mom seems unwilling to teach that lesson. You're putting yourself out there, and in marriage you'd be stepping into a father-like role. It seems like she may not be as serious about that responsibility as you are. I also wonder how often Dan Jr. sees his father, and whether he may be putting those ideas and words in his head. It's shocking that his mom is also an educator. He's 15. He knows that accusing someone of being a pedo ain't gonna lead to anything good. Yep, he knows exactly what he's doing at that age. Fine, he won. Hope he's out of the picture. I once dated a single mom with 2 kids, a 3-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. They were great kids, but very undisciplined. She would tell the boy to stop messing with merchandise, and that if he didn't stop, he would have to hold my hand. So far, so good, right? Limits on misbehavior and consequences. The problem was that she would never follow through. Not only that, but when I took his hand and he tried to pull away, he claimed I was hurting him. He was hurting himself by trying to pull away so he could continue disobeying his mother, but she yelled at me for it. There were similar incidents almost every time the 4 of us went out somewhere. Another time, her little girl ran off toward the street, ignoring her mother's pleas to come back. I had to run and catch her before she reached traffic. Her mother just hugged and kissed her and told her she should listen to mama. No consequences, even with life-threatening behavior. I realized that I would never have any control over my own household if I married her. So after several similar incidents, I broke up with her. I still loved her, but I knew we could never make a happy home together. Sometimes love is not enough, not the a-hole. Very similar situation with me too. She wanted me to help parent her son, as we had discussed in depth before moving in together, and she'd help with my daughter, who didn't need it, as she was well raised. Anytime I did what we discussed, she'd buckle, cave, and undermine me. When his behavior at school was truly terrible, she'd talk to me and ask my advice. We'd spend hours making plans, schedules, sticker charts, you name it. But as soon as he resisted even a little, and it required actual parenting, she'd fold and give up, and the behaviors continued. It got to the point where we had a mortgage sorted and an offer on a house accepted, and I realized the same thing. My life would never be my own, and I'd be financially tied to this child's terrible behavior and his mom's constant desire for an easy life. Love wasn't enough, even though she was a wonderful person outside of her parenting, especially when her son was with his father for 2 weeks at a time. Sadly, breaking up was the best decision I ever made. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to house his family and ending my engagement to protect my career? I, 36 female, recently experienced a very positive career shift. This has allowed me to afford things I've always wanted, like finally getting my own office space. Where I live, property owners often convert houses facing the highway into commercial spaces, so mixed-use areas, housing and business, are common. I rented a small 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, house-to-office property near the local college. I could afford the rent and chose to invest in the office I've long desired. I don't go to the office every single day. I'm now engaged, but our families are very different, and having my own office has put a strain on our relationship. My fiancé Dave, 43 male, comes from a loving family, but they have deep personal problems that constantly overlap. I think this has affected their ability to feel safe unless they are all together. I try not to judge, as I come from a very tight-knit family myself. However, I don't have a close relationship with his family, and I'm not invited to most of their events. I decided not to take it personally, as I felt that trying to force a closer bond might damage my relationship with Dave. I was also hesitant to let them get too close because I noticed that both his mother and sister tend to snap and act rudely. His youngest brother has been very nice to me and my kids, but his second youngest is a bit snobby. Not because of social standing, but because he is a band leader who acts as if people who don't know music don't exist. I figured avoiding over-familiarity would help us maintain a distant but respectful relationship. Fast forward to our engagement. Dave changed jobs to be closer to me so we could see each other after his office hours. My office has become a happy place for me and my kids on some weekends. I use one room as my actual office and another for files. The third is a conference room that I never use for business. Instead, that is where we sleep. Sometimes, when my kids are invited to stay at my sister's, I choose to stay at the office. I'm grateful for it because it's safe, and I don't have to drive all the way home. I hate to put it this way, but his family situation became gross and messy a few weeks before our engagement, and it worsened after the proposal. For background, my future father-in-law and mother-in-law are no longer together. They broke up the year Dave's daughter was born. She is now 15. At the time, only Dave and his sister were adults. The younger brothers were teenagers. Dave had to take his entire family in. He still keeps the same 2-bedroom apartment, and this affected his previous marriage. His ex-wife complained, so he told his mom to move out. Later, his ex-wife and sister-in-law had loud arguments, and she even had a screaming match with his mother. That relationship is now completely non-existent. I don't go to Dave's apartment often, not for any negative reason, but because I know his family likes to gather there and he looks forward to it. We had agreed that his family would remain part of his Sunday routine when we eventually move in together. However, last November, his mother and sister were kicked out of his aunt's house. They moved into the family's old home, which belonged to his grandparents, but they were eventually kicked out of there too due to drama and animosity. Dave asked for my help, so I started sending him links to rental properties. His reaction was complete silence. Then he said we needed to talk. During a very uncomfortable phone conversation, he asked if I would allow his family to stay with me. This caught me off guard, and I said no. My home is a 4-bedroom house, and I will not alter my children's routines or turn them out of their bedrooms. He said he understood, but asked me to consider letting them stay at my office. I again said no. He kept bringing it up for days, until I told him that his request felt imposing and would literally take away my peace of mind. I mentioned not wanting to cause issues with my landlord, and I expressed my firm boundary regarding my privacy and career. I keep sensitive files and client information there. Even with locking cabinets, I have signed NDAs and cannot risk it. I am finally at a point where my career is growing as planned. His 2 brothers don't have a place to live either. The youngest was asked to never visit again by his girlfriend's parents. They have 2 kids together and she lives with her parents after he started spending the night. The other lived with his mother but bounced around a lot, and I don't know the whole story. Dave got fired up, raising his voice, red-faced, and not letting me talk. He went from sounding offended to showing a lot of anger, and he yelled at me. I ended up crying, which only made him angrier. This happened at least twice in 1 week. Eventually, we both agreed we needed to talk because the conversation had gone off the rails. I tried to compromise. I suggested helping his younger brother by perhaps renting him a room. Dave seemed okay with this but remained anxious. He explained that he can't bring the whole family to his place because displacing his daughter from her room would cause custody issues with his ex. I tried to stay calm, but I told him he wasn't being fair. We are talking about 4 adults, plus his sister has 2 kids. His 2 brothers would also likely want to bring their daughters to visit. They have back child support payments, and Dave keeps saying that finding a place to live would help them complete those payments. Furthermore, no one was mentioning rent, and I lost my patience and asked him about it. He started shaking his head, as if I were a terrible person for asking. His mother doesn't have a job and needs to get back on Section 8, as does his sister. He says the wait time is challenging, which I believe, but I cannot sacrifice my professional and personal life for this. Things had seemingly calmed down for a few days because I avoided bringing the subject up. However, Dave has completely shut down sexually. He says he's not a sex machine and that he has a lot on his mind. I respected that until he told me he will never forget how I abandoned him during a time of hardship. I tried to talk to him, but whenever I bring up my side of the story, he shuts down. He says we will never reach an agreement if I refuse to understand his family situation. He has also claimed that I am materially different from who he thought I was and that he needs a partner who is loyal to him. He repeats this constantly. I go back and forth between not knowing what to say and feeling full-blown resentment toward him for trying to force me into something I don't want to do. He claims that the fact that I feel forced proves I am only in the relationship for the good times. My sister is furious with him because she caught me crying. She asked if I wanted to rent a house for them just to end the feud, but that feels even worse. It would set me back financially. The entire purpose of my previous sacrifices was to find stability. I would be in a situation where they get whatever they want, despite having excluded me in the past. I reminded him that I am the only responsible parent my children have. He says he loves my kids and understands that, but insists that I need to put myself in his shoes. I'm very hurt and very confused because this has even affected the way he speaks to me. Also, I've been very active in his daughter's life without creating problems with her mother. I'm the primary adult helping her with schoolwork because she says her mother is too strict and Dave isn't very academic. I also stayed up with Dave for months while he was trying to get his small business to take off. I helped contact potential clients, wrote proposals, and pretty much acted as his main support system when his business partner sent an FU text and announced the termination of their agreement. I'm mentioning this because I've tried to be a good partner, and I don't know if his family's current situation is making him hate me as a defense mechanism. I can't mention this to him because he gets very upset. I'm at the end of my rope. I love this man to pieces, but I felt I had to put ending our engagement on the table. His reaction scared me. He became physically ill, crying and shaking. He told me he understands me, but in the same breath he said that I am weaponizing my new income level and our relationship against him. He's offering to go to couples therapy. I know therapy could be a great tool, but I'm afraid of ending up in a situation where my career becomes a permanent sore spot. Would I be the a-hole if I go through with it without giving him any further chances? I have a lot of doubts here, and any input would help. What is he bringing to this relationship? It sounds like you're supporting him, taking care of his child, and now we're supposed to pay for his family. Your career be damned? If all he brings to the table is drama and sex, girl, you can get that anywhere. Our relationship was very respectful, and we had no fights or problems. He was very kind, and to be fair, he was the first person to help me feel like a priority. He took my feelings and opinions into consideration. When his small business went under, I had no problem helping out because one thing canceled out the other, and for a good amount of time, I felt like we were best friends. I have to ask, are you just feeling this way because of how badly other people treated you in the past? My sister and I have had conversations about how abusive people lay the track for lazy people. If you came from relationships where someone put their hands on you, of course you're going to think the next person shoots the sun, moon, and stars, just because they're not knocking your head in between the washer and dryer. He sounds terrible. Pushing you to house even one person who's not your responsibility is bad enough, but all the extra people is just insane. My best friend has been saying this. Also, I felt we were truly made for each other, not just because he didn't act like my ex, but because he actually took the time to get to know me. My ex was very snobby, and he clearly acted like a gold digger. I caught him cheating with someone who gave him access to money and status. Dave and I shared a similar upbringing, and I valued his intention of building his own wealth. At that time, I thought we could build something, and I really felt that we could be equals. Now fast forward, and not only is his family a huge factor in my decision, but he hasn't acted truly happy about anything happening for me since I insisted on housing boundaries. Last story. Am I the a-hole for leaving a date early after they showed up, looking nothing like their photos? I, 27 female, matched with someone, 26 male, on a dating app, and we talked for about 2 weeks before meeting up. Their profile had a lot of photos, clear face pics, full body shots, and no filters that I could tell. We had good conversations, similar interests, and I was genuinely looking forward to the date. When I arrived at the restaurant, I didn't recognize him at first. He eventually waved me over, and it became clear that he looked very different from their photos. Not just different angles, but clearly much older photos, and a pretty big difference in appearance overall. I tried to be polite and stayed for about 20 minutes. We made small talk, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been misled. I ended up telling him that I didn't feel a connection and that I was going to head out. I paid for my drink and left. He later messaged me saying it was rude and hurtful to leave early, and that attraction can grow if you give it a chance. A friend of mine said I should have just stayed for the full date since I was already there, and that leaving early was shallow and embarrassing for him. I didn't insult him or comment on his appearance. I just didn't want to continue a date that started with what felt like dishonesty. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. That person catfished you. His message is essentially admitting that his intention was to lead you on with a false idea of what he looked like, hoping that if you appreciated his personality enough, you would grow to be attracted to him physically as well. He was dishonest, full stop. Starting a relationship with a lie is a recipe for disaster. Why do people do this? I would much rather someone have swiped left on me than embarrass me in public. Not the a-hole. Hard to believe that he couldn't dig up any recent pics. If you'd stayed for the whole date and then declined a second date, people would say you used him. If you leave early, before any money is spent, then you're a bitch. You can't win. Might as well follow your heart. I do think it's funny that he had the nerve to message you and say you were rude LOL. You could have told him that you were trying to spare his feelings, since he is obviously insecure enough to use old photos that flatter him. I had a friend who showed up for a date, and the person was using his brother's photos in his online profile, not the a-hole. I had a friend go on a date, and the guy was as old as her father. He was using photos of himself from 20 years ago.